Okay. Hello and welcome. My name is Charlie Menick. I'm an Assistant Dean within the Forbes School of Business and Technology, and I will be your host for this session. Fostering a sense of belonging, empowering female faculty through shared experiences on unpacking the cultural norms at an online institution. So by joining us today, you acknowledge that the session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC related materials. Microphones will be muted for the presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you'd like to use it, click the show caption button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now I'm pleased to introduce Dr. Jennifer Robinson, Dr. Teresa Handy, and Dr. Tanya Mooney.
Thank you. We really appreciate that. My name is Dr. Tanya Mooney, and I am going to first give a little bit of background and context to our presentation today, and then we're going to do some self-introductions. This is a panel discussion, so it's going to be a little bit different of a format. You won't see a slide up the entire time. That way we can just focus on the discussion. Feel free to use the chat as we're going along. We also have a poll that I'm going to go over some of the results in a little bit, so if you haven't completed that poll yet, I think within Whova you can still do that. But just to give a little bit of background and context. So the title of this session is Fostering a Sense of Belonging, Empowering Female Faculty Through Shared Experiences and Unpacking the Cultural Norms at an Online Institution. So last spring, we had a colleague in the School of General Studies named Clifford Blizzard who passed away. We all, left work on Friday and come Monday, he was no longer with us. So after that event happened, it affected everybody, I think, a little bit differently, but here's how it affected me. I'm getting older, and I started to think about that need for belonging, the need to have value and purpose within my workplace, and I really wondered, would anybody even notice if I just didn't show up? You know how it is in an online workplace versus maybe a brick and mortar one. I used to be in a school, used to be a principal, and if you didn't show up on a Monday, everybody knew. So how can I be impactful? How can I leave my mark? While at the same time, as a online female faculty, the struggle is real. I hate to overplay that statement, but it really is. Our wellness is key. And so what I did is I just kind of went on Teams and put out a little blurb to a couple of my colleagues. And what formed from that was a natural small support group of females that have similar situations to me, individuals that I feel very comfortable with to me. They're individuals that can feel safe for me. They have that psychological safety, that commonality. And that's the panel that you see before us today. So over the last however many months since this spring, we're just going to kind of share of some of the things that have developed as a result of our little group. Really what I feel our group has spanned in the context of this, it's from belonging in our personal lives into our professional lives and really trying to promote that wellness piece as well. So we're just going to get into our introductions now, and I'm going to stop share. So as we get started here, I am Dr. Tanya Mooney. I teach Gen 103 full-time here at UAGC, and Dr. Jen Robinson is my chair. I live in Florida. I've been in education for many, many years, but I've been here at UAGC since about 2017, and it has been a joy and an honor working with Dr. Robinson because anyway, she encapsulates this whole presentation along with Dr. Handy. So I'll let Dr. Robinson introduce herself.
Hi. Well, the funny thing is later on in my presentation, I have in my notes that Tanya is the better half of the dynamic duo of the Gen 103 leadership. So it's definitely a joy to work with Tanya. And as the chair of information literacy, we've become, I think, just as strong of colleagues as we have friends. And so it's really, really nice then to have Teresa as well in our little group. So Teresa, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. I kind of feel like we're at a love fest, but it's true. I think I'm the newest of the bunch because I joined SGS a few years ago. I'm the program chair for Gen 101, and I do a lot of things around the university, sit on faculty council, work with a lot of different work groups. And so I engage with a lot of people throughout the day and have a lot of different tasks that I'm doing. And it's always nice to be able to have a touchstone, like Jen and Tanya are my touchstones. Even this morning, I got a text from Jen checking in, and we can do those late night texts and just kind of have fun. But this is important to me as my last year's UFP focused on this type of work of how do we build community for faculty women of color. And so this bridges that. And it really just kind of encompasses that women need that level of support. And that's what we want to talk about today. And I think I'm going to move right into some common definitions that you may be hearing from the title of our panel and even into as we continue on speaking today. So the first one is belonging. And that's, we've heard that a lot over the last day and a half. And we just wanted to, have a normalized definition that belonging in higher education means a sense of connection, acceptance that a faculty member feels within that community. It means that faculty members feel valued and included and supported by their colleagues and within the academic community. So this matters because students benefit, as we know, from faculty who feel supported and connected positively, which impacts academic success and student retention, which are all big rocks for us that we're trying to have some success with. And next you'll hear the word empowerment. And by empowerment, I'm not saying that we want to give more power or more privileges to someone. We're speaking about how we can support female faculty, how to use their voices and to speak for them when they're not present. Dr. Fitzpatrick is here. We did a UFP a few years ago called Walk the Talk. And one of the outcomes of that study was that we need to have seats at the table for diverse faculty, right? And so women fall into that marginalized group. So if you don't have someone in the room or at the table who is a female, please speak on their behalf. We also want to talk about cultural norms. In this context, we are really speaking about the expectations, behaviors, and values that shape the academic community. Those are those things that are invisible, right? We have to explain what those are so that people feel comfortable. We need to look at how an institution values scholarship and teaching and service. How do they value diversity, shared governance, and work-life balance? All of those things that are just kind of known by being a part of a community, we have to share what those are with people who are not typically at the table. And that's important because they have to know what they are so they can adapt to them and have success in their academic career. So now I'm going to pass it back over to Tanya.
Thank you, Dr. Handy. That sets us off for this discussion. You're going to notice as we talk, we'll be going back and forth with one another, asking questions, but there are 3 parts that we're really going to be focusing on. The very first segment is going to be those hidden rules and expectations, maybe that we put on one another, put on ourselves, or the university puts on us. The second part is going to be about belonging in community building. And then thirdly, is going to be work-life balance and wellness. So again, if you haven't already, fill out that poll. And Dr. Handy and Dr. Robinson remind me at the end, we need to leave about 15 minutes for question, answers, and comments. And I do want to pull out some things from the survey that people have responded. I already read some of them, and somebody says, well, I'm a man, I don't really have any obstacles. Like Dr. Handy said, put on those eyes then. What have you seen other women face as obstacles or challenges? And we don't want to leave out the fact that we are sure that men do as well. But because we are all women, we identify well together, and that's what specifically we're talking about. So we are going to get started on talking about these hidden rules and expectations. So first, Jen, I'm going to ask you a question. You have experience onboarding new faculty, especially in Gen 103. So what are some things that you do to help your teammates when they are onboarding in the sense of belonging?
So I think the first thing that I work on is being very intentional. And by doing this, I mean starting to think of myself in their place and the things I wanted to learn and know about. And so when I started onboarding, when I moved over to Gen 103, I reached out to some of my old, shout out to the Department of Ed and Liberal Arts, and to see if anybody had anything to support. And Jesse Upshaw had this great onboarding document that helped us just iron out, if you need help with technology, you go here. If you need help with HR, you go here. If you need help with Canvas, go here. And I thought, wow, that is a really great place to start to build consistency and belonging. Because when you start a new job, it's hard to know where to go. But when you start it virtually, it's even more difficult to know who to go to, for what, when, and maybe who's to avoid because they can't help you. So that's really important. That was providing that consistency of contact. The other thing was to reach out. So to share who the key people are. So in that, being intentional with the onboarding, making sure that I can make those connections for people, helping new faculty through the university is essential, and to build them up across multiple committees. Here's how you get to know everybody and who's doing what. Join committees, join groups, figure out what you really want to do, what you're really good at, and join that community. But in order to do that, I have to know the communities as well. So helping them understand some of the, all right, if you know you want to join this community, here are some of the expectations of this community that you want to join. Or if I don't know, making sure I can connect. For example, we had a faculty council position open up for the School of General Studies for an associate faculty member. And when I joined over to the information literacy team, I tried to meet with as many associate faculty as I could one-on-one. It took a couple months, but I was able to meet and just start to figure out who had goals to do what. And from that, I was able to reach out to a few people to say, hey, this position is opened. Are you interested? Being able to bring people in to make sure that what they want to do is matched to what we have available is really important to me. And then finally, helping people find their flock. And this Find Your Flock comes from research on women and well-being in workplaces. And so starting to reach out to find my flock. And this is really important day to day. I have a couple of flocks and I have conversations going on all day about family, about friends, about work stuff. And sometimes it's the combination of work and family. But being able to have that in a virtual space when I'm home alone all day, except with the cats climbing the blinds, I don't have a lot of humans around me all day. So it's really nice to have these touch points, as Teresa said. Sometimes you can just feel in the universe that somebody needs a touch point. So just reaching out to make sure that we're all still there. It's also good, to Teresa's point, if I don't show up for a couple days, will anyone notice? And I want to make sure that I notice. Clifford's death hit us all really hard and made us all take a step back to reflect on, okay, who are my people and who's going to know if I'm not here? And that became really important. I wanted to make sure that all of my team understood who those people were, that their flocks were not hidden, but that we can match them together. Teresa, I want to ask you though, you have lots of experience helping new faculty find their ground. What are some ways that new faculty uncover norms when they join a completely remote team?
Thanks, Jen. I joined as a new faculty member shortly after earning my doctorate. So I was unaware of how to really connect within an academic community as a colleague. I'm not a first-gen student, but I am new to academia and what that means in that role. So what I did was I leaned on my social work skills and my awareness of how to build community. Immediately upon graduating, I started looking up faculty women of color at local college campuses, and I arranged one-on-ones with them. I reached out to former professors. One of them is in the room, Dr. Tamika Fitzpatrick, and we actually wrote an article about the transition of our relationship from student and professor to colleague. And you can actually find it in the article repository within the conference. And all of that was really important because through those connections, I was able to land teaching jobs at the local community college and eventually at UAGC. So when I started, I was an associate faculty member and I felt really alone and isolated. So I started reaching out and attending faculty community of practice events and the faculty quarterly meetings and other events that were being held for faculty, as well as going to conferences like TLC and other special events in the Center for Women's Leadership, and just trying to make connections with people. And when I was in these virtual settings, I would note the people who were welcoming, who were interesting, who were knowledgeable, and I would connect with them after the events for brief coffee meetings. Jessie, who was in the room, she and I meet periodically for our little coffee meetups, and those opportunities to connect with colleagues, so important. But those are real, as you mentioned before, intentional efforts that were being made. But it was also during these times that relationships were developed and people began to share information with me about how things are done. So I had a nice group of people that I could turn to if I found myself confused or if I needed a bit of information. I also volunteered to share in sessions, which also allowed me to build my confidence in communicating. It's completely different communicating virtually than it is in person. One of the sessions earlier today was talking about faculty walking through a classroom and being able to visually see how students are doing. You have to really use all of your spidey senses in the virtual setting. So now when we have new faculty members, and Dr. Lauer is in the session as well, she is our faculty mentor, and our faculty benefits so much from that one-on-one communication with her and that engagement with her. But our team stresses the importance of connecting with the community, that's a tongue twister, as soon as possible. So Connie Lauer sends out announcements every Monday to our faculty, telling them about events they can be a part of. I was so impressed to see that our new faculty members are presenting at TLC and showing up at these events and providing feedback to within our systems and building relationships. That's not really something that I would have done. Like, one of our faculty has only taught 4 classes and he's presenting at TLC. He's a doc student as well. And so I'm like, I love the fact that they're confident, and that's what we want to see from our faculty. But the only way to make it happen is to step out and try. And it's been great seeing people do that on our team. I'm so grateful to those colleagues who were the light for me to connect. And now I work really hard to be the light for new faculty to connect to the academic community. And through my recent UFP, where I worked with faculty women of color, I really tried to continue to build that connection for them to the UAGC community. And once again, I'm so proud that my light has helped other people to build their light. And I think it's so important that so many are jumping in and becoming engaged and showing up within our community. So thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, I love what Teresa said about being the light and using spidey senses. And she is an incredible model of both. It's a joy to work with. And so as women who work remotely, we cannot just knock on someone's office doors or take a walk through a classroom. We cannot just observe behavior in real time. So we have to find ways to intentionally support each other and learn the expectations and all of those little hidden nuances that we may not know as we join a virtual team. So by supporting and connecting each other across the university, we build our flock and learn how things done and how to function in the culture. Teresa, I love that you mentioned the spidey senses. I think that is such a cool, yeah, you're right. You're right. And then when you joined UAGC, Teresa, what did colleagues do to help you feel part of the group?
Am I muted? Let's see. No, good. I was wondering, did I mute myself back? So, I mentioned going to events and connecting with people. I mentioned people being warm and welcoming, like Jessie Upshaw. And then there's Bill Davis. I mean, who doesn't know the icon Bill Davis, right? I laugh about Bill Davis and I being the unlikely mentoring pair because we're so different, but yet we are so similar. And these two continue to be touchstones for me at work. And there are people who've made time for me, just that 20 minutes, 30 minutes for a coffee. That little bit of time can mean so much in the virtual workspace because you don't really know how isolating it is until you look around and go, I haven't really spoken to anyone for 4 hours. Let me schedule some time with some of my online buddies. So, but there are so many challenges. There are challenges with time zones, not having those hallway chats, or stopping by the water cooler, as they used to say, or the coffee pot, in the workroom. And I know that when I do go over to the local community college, I love hanging out in the library, seeing people walk by. We don't have that in the virtual environment. So those normal happenstance check-ins that happen in a brick and mortar, they just don't happen. And that's why the intentionality really matters. So I would really suggest that people take advantage of the supports put on your team. So build a relationship with your faculty support consultant, schedule regular check-ins with your managers, like your program chair, and develop peer mentorship relationships with your colleagues. It's so comforting to know that I have people that I can talk to and not worry about having my words used against me later. So that's where the cone of silence comes in, and that trust that Tanya was talking about earlier. And we call it channel 3. So if you hear cone of silence in channel 3, then you're like, oh, it sounds a little nefarious, but it's not. There are some people that I can call and say, this is, let's go into the cone of silence. And that means that I can vent in safety. That means the world to me. You want to make sure that you take personal things and feelings or reactions offline. You don't want to react. And let's just talk about the elephant in the room. This whole week has been very emotional for a lot of people, regardless of where you stand. It's just been an emotional week. And so having the check-in of a colleague, to get that text early this morning when I know she's in a completely different time zone meant the world to me. And then just having people ping me, take care of yourself. It means the world to me. And so when we say channel 3, that means go to your cell phone and start texting, and you're doing that in safety. When we say cone of silence, that means everything I've just said to you doesn't leave this conversation. And that is what we need. These are some of the ways that allow people to feel safe and heard at work without fearing retribution. And as women and as women in general, but then as a woman of color, I do feel sometimes that I am misunderstood, or that that the stereotypes of who I am enter the room before I enter the room. And so if one of the jokes is that I'm Switzerland, I really do stay in the middle, right? I rarely show, swings of, irritation. But recently I was a little irritated, and Jen and I both said, like, if we're irritated, then it must be time for the holidays, right? Like it's the end of the year. So it's nice that people know you like that as well. But the trust is so important. So it allows for sacred relationships with which people need to feel safe and to feel connected to to the university community. So Jen, I know you've belonged to several teams at UAGC. How is it that you have reestablished belonging in each of your teams?
Well, I don't ask permission. No, just kidding. I think coming back to just being very intentional about getting to know people. So when I first came over to the School of General Studies, it was a bit of a different culture. I was coming from teachers, because I was over in education with all the teachers. And then I came over to working with the general education faculty. It was a bit of a different culture than I had become comfortable with. So, selfishly, to get to know people, I put on my goals that I would lead book clubs. So I did this for a couple of years, and there were months where I didn't want to do it, but man, did it pave the way for me to get to know Clifford before he passed away, to learn about Teresa, and everything going on in her life, and what an incredible professional she is, and to learn more about Tanya, who I work with every day, but there are still things I don't know about her. So creating these book clubs was an intentional way for me to get to know people as I joined the culture, because I wasn't sure what to do to get to know people. So I had to create something in order to get to know people. And fortunately, I created it and they came. Sometimes we didn't talk about the book. We would mention something and then we would go off into left field or to right field. But we would come back to that. But in all of that, I got to know these really neat people, and this paid off tremendously for getting to know the people I work with now. And um, as much as I rolled my eyes and thought, why did I ever do this? It was probably one of the best ways I could have done to get to know my colleagues. But in that, learn about colleagues, again with intention. And I use a very gently intrusive nature, asking questions tell me more about your kiddo. Tell me more about your parents. Wow, you're the sandwich generation too. And here's what we're going through with that. And that's really helpful because back to what Tanya said earlier, if one of us doesn't show up, who's going to know? But also, can we pick up on those nuances in our colleagues' behaviors online that maybe cue us to channel 3? Is there something? Is everything okay? How can I help? But also, if there's a death in someone's family, I'm going to step right in there and say, let me take your class for a week. If I know somebody's been in a car accident, let me do your discussions tonight. You go rest. There's little things we can do to show up for people, to build those relationships intentionally. And for me, it's being gently intrusive in learning about people in a way to build trust that allows me to jump in to help them without feeling like I'm being controlling and taking over. It's genuinely coming from a place of, let me help. And I think that is really important when we're building groups and building community with each other. Thanks for letting me share, Teresa.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. And what you said something really interesting. You said, don't ask permission. And I thought to myself, you belong here. Like so often, people feel like they have to tiptoe around, but you know what? You belong here. We all belong here. I was thinking about how Joan Burkhart shared with me the importance of using the EAP resources when we were all kind of going through the loss of Clifford, and how I didn't know about that and how meaningful that was for me to be able to use a free resource, right? I don't know if many of you all know that, but at UAGC, we have, you can get free therapy when you're dealing with a crisis. And, and Justin recommended that we, use those resources when he found out about them as well. And I was like, wow, what if we didn't have the trust to be able to say, I'm not okay, right? So thank you, Jen. You are fantastic at making faculty feel safe and heard. And I know that you value the trust that comes with those relationships. But all of this, as I said, it can take a toll. And the work that we do to build relationships and holding space for others, so specifically women. Tanya, tell us how, as the member of the Wellness Committee at UAGC, how you are handling the impacts of belonging related to wellness. Can you share a bit about how belonging impacts wellness with us?
Absolutely, but I first want to selfishly share why I even got involved in the wellness committees and promoting it at UAGC. And it's because I wasn't doing well. I don't know about the rest of you, but I wasn't doing well. I'm an introvert, and as much as I love the isolation of remote work, it takes its toll and it has its consequences. So I figured, if I'm feeling this, I know other people are feeling this. So I joined the Wellness Committee at UAGC. It's been a tremendous group that I'm a part of, as well as the University of Arizona's Wellness Ambassador. And so part of belonging is connected with wellness in mental health, the emotional safety, the security, I don't know if any of you can remember when we didn't work online, but that camaraderie that's built when you walk in and everybody's like, hey, how's it going? How was your weekend? And you've heard us talk about that. We don't have those check-ins unless you are intentional. So the Wellness Committee really focuses on how we can do that to bring wellness to our faculty. And again, selfishly, this little group that we started was for me to do that. Yes, I can practice wellness at a corporate level or at a university level, but how do I get even more connected and promote that work-life balance at UAGC? Again, working on campus, I remember at one university I worked at, I was able to move. Being able to walk from class to class. And I don't know about you guys, but you would feed off the energy of the students. You would walk in the classroom and you could feel their excitement and their discussions and their ideas, versus now online, we call it the drone of the day. Your head is down, you're working, the hours go by, there's no movement. And they found that sitting is the new smoking. If you sit, it's the equivalent to smoking a certain amount of packs a day. And so the health takes its toll. I fortunately have a supportive chair that pushes me to move. She'll say, did you do your walk today? You know, you take care of you. If I've had a particularly rough day, she seems to know. And I'm trying to build this, but she has the ears to hear what's not there and the eyes to see what you can't see. And I think that's what wellness is. We have that for each other. So there are many benefits, I think, that we can take and maximize as women working remotely. For example, when I am trying to fill the roles of being a mom, I have older adult children, but they seem to take just as much time as the young ones did, just in a more serious, heavy way. There was 5 years of my husband and I's life where we adopted 3 of our grandchildren, and we were back raising young grandchildren again. And again, having a chair that trusts me, that knows I'm going to get the work done, but also realizes I'm taking care of little kids again. Like that takes a certain toll and a type of flexibility. When the school calls and says, hey, you need to come pick them up, you have to go pick them up. And if you don't, that takes a toll on your wellness, because you're thinking in your head, I should be going and picking them up, and I feel guilty if I'm not. So all those things of being a mother really helps and is a benefit of wellness, especially when you have people that support you. The other part of having a support group and focusing on wellness is, to me, the feeling of belonging is that I need to know that I can contribute, that I have value and worth as I age. This has hit me really hard the last couple years, and some of you might not be there yet. Some of you might be going through what I'm going through, and maybe some of you have accepted this. But aging comes with some health conditions. Like, things start to break down. I've had a hip replacement and some other things that really take that toll. So working online, it's beautiful to have that flexibility, but finding that way to reach out to all the wellness benefits that you have. As a wellness, I'm kind of bouncing around here, but they all play in together. As a wellness ambassador, part of my job is to help communicate and share the benefits that we do have. If you guys have not signed up for it and you're benefits eligible, this is my shameless plug, sign up for HIP. It's an app, and it's a program where it just reminds you to move every day. You can look at different videos and listen. You can earn up to $200. So that was a shameless plug for that. But that's how belonging can be built, is you join these things that UAGC offers, having those checklists. Again, the other thing I want to talk about wellness is a thing that isolation and loneliness can really compound, and that's mental health. That sometimes we need space for those bad days without any judgment. I did another presentation with my son. It's one of the pre-recorded ones, and the title of it is Tales from Mother and Son, and it has to do with mental health and belonging. And I have PTSD, so there are days where my sense of belonging is very skewed. And in my mind, I can try to tell myself, no, that's not what people are thinking about you. You do have value and purpose, and you do belong here. But my brain is fighting that when I'm having one of those days. So those days for judgment, or sometimes I think the best comment that I ever get is, no, I trust you. Like, you've proved your value. You don't have to try to prove that anymore. And I think that sometimes comes with the mental health piece, along with our personalities. If you're a type A personality and you do want to do things right, my dad was a farmer from North Dakota, so I was raised to work from sun up to sundown. It all compiles, and having the space to be able to sort that through and identify what is healthy for me and what is not healthy for me is something that we need to do. The other thing that I would like to share is, I don't know how many sessions you guys have been able to attend. I attended one yesterday, and it's so nice to see how many weaves of thread are being woven through this beautiful tapestry of belonging. Was it Dr. Lanier, Dr. Handy, that we were listening to yesterday? And she kind of had a pronged approach to wellness. And I was thinking, man, she belongs here. She should be working here on our wellness team, just to be able to see that and identify that, that psychological safety, Just want to make sure I got everything out there. So to end that question, how can you share how belonging impacts wellness? I think that was the question. When we feel well, when our physical, our social, our psychological wellness is taken care of, I feel like it's more likely for me to feel like I belong. Because if any one of those things are off, that belonging seems to take an impact. So, Teresa, I know you had a serious life event. If you care to share about your father's passing, how did you find support when you went through that?
Yes, thank you. And anyone who knew me from July of 2021 is probably like, Teresa's going to talk about her father passing without breaking out in a ball of tears. Well, yes, my father passed during one of my summer courses. I mean, I was understandably devastated. Like, I've never felt so horrible. And I remember sharing the news with my students and how comforting they were in their words, and how that reminded me of why I love teaching our students, because they have had so many struggles and losses in their lives. And the fact that I could reach out and extend their empathy and care was really special for me. And I remember that whenever students share with me now about losing a relative, a friend, I am able to kind of pull from that experience and share with them. My team was wonderful when I lost my father. They offered to cover my class for me, but I know my dad, and he would have said, "Carry on," right? So I carried on. I just pushed through, and I'm glad that I did. Um, the first year was a blur, right? Understandably. But it was nice that I had colleagues who were supporting me and checking in with me and giving me grace with deadlines. And when you have that foggy brain, people were not expecting me. When I mentioned my father, I'm sure people were like, oh my gosh, I mentioned my father at any given opportunity that I could. Um, and I was able to use the therapy services provided by our institution, which really helped to ground me. Um, as I said, he came up all the time and I kept pushing through. But the peak moment for me, the transitional, like that transformational point, was when I was doing an Ed Talk with Jackie Kiger as my coach. And if you've ever done an Ed Talk, and there's a session on Ed Talks, if you want to learn more about them, Jesse and Jackie and a bunch of other folks have done these, run these for our institution for 10 years, maybe. But it's 18 minutes of talking, right? And I was like, there's no way I'm going to do this without crying, because of course your Ed Talk is very personal. It's a connection of yourself to your teaching practice. But somehow I did. Jackie doesn't know this, but during our coaching sessions, he would really reframe things for me, and it really helped me to find strength in what I was going through. At the same time, Bill Davis was also checking in on me. And in many ways, these two very kind souls helped me move through my grief. And I'm forever grateful for their patience and their kindness, because it helped me to become whole again, where I can then move forward on my journey. And periodically, Bill would say, "Your dad would be so proud of you." And it's just one of those moments where, like a little girl, like, all excited but the fact that my colleague gets it and understands that about me, and that my experience doesn't take away from my professionalism in any way, right? It just helps me feel more connected, more seen in my community where I spend a lot of time. So I know that in my role, I try to remember these kinds of kind gestures, and I use them with my team, Jen. I've had team members to lose relatives, and it's given me a moment to say, wait a minute, this is a tough time. Just take the afternoon off. Come back Monday, we'll talk later. I know you were thinking about your team's workload in the framework of belonging and wellness as a leader. How do you support your faculty's well-being?
Yeah, first of all, I have to say just being in your circle is helpful. You're so good at you're talking about Jackie helping you reframe. You're a master at helping others reframe. So I just wanted to put that out there that if you ever need to bounce ideas off of someone, Teresa's an excellent person to do that with. When it comes to work-life balance in my team, the first thing is I'm always thinking about what's on their plate already. I want to keep their workload in mind, and it's important to me not to shift anybody out of balance. I can't guarantee that will not happen, but my ultimate goal as a leader is to make sure that somebody else's balance isn't knocked out of whack too much. I know my teammates have lots of out of work obligations, and I'm talking about the entire information literacy team, not just the two of us on the screen. I know that they carry very heavy mental loads at work and outside of work. And so I do not want them worrying about coming in and answering, opening their email and having a ton of to-dos for me on Mondays. I refrain from doing that, and I just simply ask, what's on your plate? Is this something you can do? And if not, it's not a big deal. But I'll never know unless I ask. The other thing is then I keep gauging what their work-life balances are. And this is with my associate faculty too. At the end of a course, associate faculty may have multiple incomplete grades, and they just may not have the bandwidth to keep up with those. So that's when we work together to shift that to somebody else who has the bandwidth. I just want to make sure they know that I'm a safe person they can reach out to say, I just don't have the bandwidth to do that. And that's okay. And somebody once apologized to me for that. And I said, I actually have a lot of respect for you being able to put down your life boundaries to say what you can and cannot do in your margins, because I'm guilty of not being able to do that. So I love when people can come to me and say, my margin just will not allow this. I mentioned earlier that if somebody has a life event, I might take on their course for a few days, or if there's a student issue, I might say, let me hop in and I'll engage with that student so you can focus on everybody else. Just trying to figure out how I can make their life at work a little easier, because then their life at home will be less stressful. And the other thing is just to continue following up. There are always times when I drop the ball, sometimes the glass ones, not always the rubber ones. And but I have found that building these relationships, building this belonging, being very intentional means that when I do drop a glass ball or I bounce a rubber ball, I get so much grace in return, because people know that I also have a work-life balance that might be out of whack. And so just by being able to build these relationships, building a community and a collective of people, if I'm struggling, somebody's going to give me the grace to work around that as well. So I was going to say now that Tanya is the better half of our 2-person leadership team, but really what it is part of working in our flocks is knowing who has skills I do not have. I don't have all the skills as much as I would like to say I do. I'm really good at coming up with ideas. And you know what? I know Tanya is really good with details. So if I need feedback on something that's detailed, I'm going to ask her. And I know that she's going to help me. And there's not going to be judgment involved. It's just going to be, oh, okay, yeah, I can look over this. That's fine. It's finding those people who can strengthen us together as a team, instead of seeing other women as competition in our community. Thanks for letting me share, Tanya. I'm just going to keep gushing more.
It's such a good gush. Well, so I'm going to go a little bit over the poll results that we posted before this session started. I'm also going to pose a question here in the chat area. And again, we are focusing on faculty because our experiences are as faculty. But as I read the room, we know that there's other females here that might be in a different role. So it's not just that. If you work at UAGC, you work with a female, this question is for you. So what are your ideas you're going to take away to foster a sense of belonging and support female faculty or other staff in the area that you work? And again, I love the comment in the first poll that says, I felt like I was listening to the Jake from State Farm commercial. He's like, well, I'm not a girl. So even if you're not a female, that's okay. Or if you're not a woman, that's okay, because I know you have those in your lives that you do. You see what they're doing. Some of the feedback from the first poll was that some of you shared that you are lacking opportunities or the access to opportunities. And there's frustration there with that. Managing everything that it takes to do on a daily basis, and that you feel like that's an obstacle to belonging because you have to run and go get the kids, or you have to run and take care of a parent that's aging. And here on this panel, we are all experiencing that. that sandwich generation. We've got adults on, parents on one side that we need to care for, but we also have adult children on the other side that need us as well. So I do want to open up the microphone for any comments, suggestions, questions. Raise your hand if you can. And we're used to the live learning where we raise our hand and ask it. But if you just need to take over the mic, that's just as fine as well. But what are some of the ideas that you've seen to foster that sense of belonging to support female faculty?
Giving
guys.
everyone some thinking time.
Yeah, that think time.
And we're all teachers, so we're not afraid of awkward silences. We call it just intentional pause.
And also realizing the time of day. If you're in my time zone, it's 4:45 and things start shutting down at 4:30.
I'm on the West Coast, so we're still in our early afternoon here.
Cognitive function is a thing.
I think I'll add though, if you don't want to share, that's fine. But if you know of something you want to be a part of, or you want ideas, or you just want to carry on the conversation, reach out to us. We're happy to have that conversation. We're certainly happy to make the time to have a coffee or tea with you virtually and just walk through whatever it is you're thinking or feeling, or just even if you just want to brainstorm. Maybe you have women in your life and you're trying to figure out how to help them, or maybe you're part of the sandwich generation. We're all three going through sandwich generation things right now. So just know that even whether it's work or life, there's going to be a place where we find commonality.
And for those who are in the sandwich generation, we do have an elder care counselor who's available to us through the wellness office at our university. And she has been amazingly supportive to me to help me navigate resources locally. So they spend a lot of time finding local resources for you. So it's not just Arizona based.
Thing I did want to add is, Jen, when you were talking about the whole brick and mortar and knowing where to go and what to do, that was a huge challenge for me coming from a brick and mortar school to online remote. My brain organizes things on locale and people. So if I would see Teresa sitting in an office, I know that's in the whatever program that's in, that's how I remember. I had a very hard time, and I still to this day, like I just met Becky when we started. I'm like, okay, now where does she work? But I have no office to attach her to. So I have to try to figure out, and that's not a safe place to be when you feel like you should be able to figure that out awful quick, right? You're given an org chart. So everybody should be totally 100% okay after you read the org chart, right? It didn't work like that for me. So that safety of, anyway, that was a random thought, but when you said that, it made me think of that. And that whenever I would reach out and ask a question, it didn't make me feel like I was stupid. That's huge. So, and I have to remember when people ask me questions to respond in that same way.
I have, when I first joined UAGC, I was coming from brick and mortar, universities, research universities, where there were very, very large classes. And one of the things was we sat around the coffee table with other faculty. One of the things was, oh, I hope a few drop so that lessens the amount of students I have in the class. So I was sitting, and I was hired into the Masters of Education program, and I was sitting in there with Jackie and Julie and Jen Vogel, who hired me, and there was a fourth person. She lives in Washington, but her name is slipping me. And I had a huge class, and I sat there, you know, in my virtual meeting back before Zoom. We were just all on the phone at that point. And I said, yeah, I hope a few drop so that it lowers the number of students in my classroom. And I just remember there was dead silence. Culturally, that was not something we talk about here, whereas we did on the on ground courses. So sometimes we learn the cultural things just by making our faux pas. Yes, it was Kathleen. And knowing that you're in a group when you make a faux pas, that it's okay, that somebody will take you aside virtually later and be like, oh, hey, yeah, culturally, we don't say those things here, and here's why. So it's always helpful to have these people because I am full of faux pas, as Ali Reef can probably attest to everybody here. So just being able to have safe people to pull me aside and say, yeah, Jen, we don't say that here, and here's why, really helps build culture and lets me know that, when someone is talking to me, it's not coming from a place of maliciousness. It's truly trying to keep me from sinking myself, usually. Mallory, I love that idea. Mallory says she tries to find topics that are in common with other faculty, and that you connected with an associate faculty a few weeks ago over your love of Halloween. I love that. So you always find way to connect. And that is crucial. That's crucial. It doesn't always have to be work, does it? It can be anything. I mean, Teresa's got a kiddo going into college, and I've got a couple who are up to transfer to different colleges. So we have that going on, and that's not work related. That's just, we're moms and we have kids going to college, and it's overwhelming in and of itself. So yeah, our connections do not have to be work based.
No, but building those connections has to be intentional. For example, I knew Teresa, we chatted, but I was flying back from North Dakota to Florida this summer and happened to stop overnight. In Memphis. And I said, I'm going to be swinging through, Teresa, and this was way out of my comfort zone. I said, would you want to go out for dinner? And sure enough, she says, absolutely, let's go out. I know a great place to eat. So I was flying with the grandkids and my daughter, and they were going to go one way and I was going to go another. And so this is kind of funny. This is this whole remote world, right? My daughter kept saying, are you sure she's real? Like she's not a serial killer and so even when Teresa picked me up, my daughter's like, is she real? Was it her? They're so funny. But that night we went out and I felt like we've probably known each other forever and really be able to share some of those commonalities outside of work. It was delightful, way out of my comfort zone, but I'm so glad I did it.
Tanya, you bring up, oh, go ahead, Teresa.
I was saying I am real, but when she told me that, I thought that was so funny that her daughter was so concerned. But and then you think about it, I am a complete stranger, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know Jessie Upshaw did that once, and I think Jessie's here. She was driving from Houston. I was living in Wisconsin at the time, and she was driving right through Kenosha. So she called me up or texted me and said, oh, I'm going to be driving through Kenosha in 45 minutes. And I was like 25 minutes from the Starbucks on the freeway. So, not for anybody else would I dash out of bed without a shower to go to have coffee with at Starbucks. But anytime we can make those little connections, knowing where each other lives, I loved that Tanya and Teresa got together, and I was really, really jealous because I wanted to be there too. But it's always fun if we know where people live, if we can just meet up. I've done that with students too, driving through Dayton, Ohio. I just met up with a student, and it was just really fun. It was just really fun to be able to do that.
Yes, well, there's another conference coming up here in Orlando. I'm supposed to be teaching pickleball to Allie and another gentleman, but we'll see if that works out. But we only have a few minutes left, so I want to give Jen and Teresa, I want you just to give a few moments, just your closing comments. And again, thank everybody for coming. Jen, closing comments.
Yeah, I think outside of the many times I've said be intentional, know your strengths and your areas of opportunity, because part of being in these communities is if I know I'm not good at something, I can go to Teresa and Tanya, and we've built a community of trust that I can go to them and say, I'm just not good at this. Can you help me? Or can you look this over? And I know that they're not going to think I'm just asking them for free labor time, that I genuinely want to know how they feel about something. And so by doing this, we continue to build community. We begin to build belonging, and we're doing it in a way that's bringing us together like puzzle pieces that can help each other, support each other, and learn from each other. Also, I think learning what are each other's goals? Like, Teresa, what do you want to do in 5 years? What do you want to do in 10 years? And we've had these conversations. So when Teresa's out in her email threads and she finds something awesome like a book contest, and she knows I've just published a book and she sends that to me to submit my book, those are huge. It's just the little teeny things that we're learning about each other that continues to help us build community.
I completely agree. I love when there, I write children's books as well, and so someone happened to hear me say that, and so they pinged me, "Hey, I want to get one of your books," and I'm like, "I'll just send it to you for free." She's like, "No, I'm gonna buy it," and so I love that people like support like your things that are important to you. But when I think about empowering faculty women of colors through supporting them and increasing their sense of belonging, I really want to stress the importance of reaching out to diverse faculty and supporting those connections. Ping them, send them a quick email, include them on your email sharing list. I remember I talked about this in my workshop yesterday. I remember sharing a conference proposal with a faculty member, and she was unsure of her ability to get accepted. And then she was pleasantly surprised when she was like, "This is so easy, I got accepted." So when I think about those kinds of moments, I think about even the one that happened yesterday, where I pinged a presenter and said, "Your work is so amazing. You should think about joining this committee." And she was a diverse faculty, and you should apply for an OSIF grant because you have a really, the beginnings of a good study. And she was like, "What's an OSIF grant?" And I thought to myself, oh, this once again, you're seeing how explaining the cultural norms, explaining the culture of the university, explaining what's available opens up an opportunity. So I very quickly just copied the email and sent it to her in a ping. And now she has, as we say, the keys to the kingdom. Like she can try, right? But before yesterday, she didn't even know it existed. So reach out, share, and be embracive and embracing. And I'll be remiss if I didn't say that I have a manager, Allie Reef, who is just, if I say I wanted to go to the moon, she would try to help me figure out how to get there. And so when you have someone behind you that's encouraging you and supporting you and being your cheerleader. So if you can do that for someone, do it. If you are in a leadership position and you can encourage and make someone's dreams come true, help them. Because it's not often that people feel that in the workplace. And so I consider that to be a great blessing. And it does make me feel incredibly connected and as if I do belong.
Thanks. And lastly, I guess I would just emphasize what you both said. It's the relationships that we build with intentionality. Use wellness to build relationships, but also take wellness serious enough so you can take care of you. We are in a remote setting. Others may not notice. So be an advocate for yourself. Be an advocate. When you are struggling, find safe people to reach out to and let them know you're struggling. And then you as a leader, if people are reaching out to you, I think try to figure out, how many can you handle for your own emotional sake. So we just want to thank you today for listening to us have this discussion, sharing our experiences. We're very thankful that you chose our presentation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you to our presenters. Thank you to our audience for participation in today's session. So if you would please use the survey linked in the chat to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and share your feedback on the conference experience would be fantastic. So thank you again and enjoy the rest of the conference.